Good afternoon, Mr. Prieto. I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me. Today, I want to discuss with you the professional coaching plan. I think it was back in October. I sat down with you and Ms. Castillo, the math instructional coach, and there were some major concerns that at that time that I had, and we sat down and I explicitly expressed those concerns to you. Can I ask you, when I initially called you in and Ms. Castillo was in the office, like, what were your thoughts? How did you feel?
I guess during, let's say during and immediately after the first coaching session, I guess, there was a different perspective that you were sharing with me, and I kind of felt like maybe I didn't entirely agree with it. It certainly didn't reflect my perspective on the data. And I was really looking a lot at the past data from the students in my classroom, and so I had different expectations of what that data should look like. Specifically, I guess, like, unit exams and their grades in the classroom. So I guess I was a little bit perturbed, where exactly you're coming from. I guess that's the best way to put it.
So initially, when I first met with you, I printed your failure report. And at that time, you were at a 28% failure rate. And I remember specifically telling you that, Mr. Prieto, I believe that you're better than that. I believe that you're better than that. When I told you that at the end of the next 3 weeks that you had to change, this failure rate had to go below 15%. It could not be any higher than 15%. Like, what were your initial thoughts? What were you thinking? Like, what did you say? If you remember from the meeting, what is it?
I don't remember exactly what I said, but I'm sure I could be pretty accurate about how I felt. I kind of felt like that for 15% of them to be passing, that wasn't going to accurately reflect their ability. So I almost felt like, that I'm really not going to be able to grade accurately. And then we had a small conversation about that, and I don't know if you want me to go into detail about that.
I would like you to share, because I remember specifically saying, at no point am I telling you need to pass kids. Right.
So, no point. Yeah, and that's another story too, and I guess you could say I kind of felt that way, but more specifically, what you shared with me and what I shared with you is that, look, here's where their performance on the STAR was. The unit exams pretty accurately reflect the rigor that they're going to see on STAR, and if they can't jump 30 points in a couple of weeks, how can their grades in the classroom be higher? So I think that's when you really started stressing over and over that, look, you're not kind of thinking of the grading that you are, that I'm not thinking of grading the way you are, and you really kind of started stressing that you wanted their grading to represent their participation in classroom and their performance in the classroom. And I don't know if you remember, you kept telling me you're thinking about something else, and that has nothing to do with our conversation. So I think that kind of hit home the most.
Actually, you're right. In addition to that, we talked about that. Yes, I'm not talking about that. And I said, I don't want to talk about that. And I also remember specifically saying, because I think you brought up some concerns about the grading criteria percentages. And I said, I specifically asked you, is that something in your control? And you said no.
That's right.
And I said, it's not in my control either. And so I don't want to talk about things that are not in the direct control of yourself and I. And so moving along, when I finally closed out the meeting, I told you that I would meet with Ms. Castillo and we would draft a plan. And we did draft a plan, and this is the coaching plan. And I remember going over goal 1 and said by the end of week 3, the failure rate in all classes will be 15% or below. I will follow up. Prieto will create an action plan by next Monday, October 22nd, on how to bring up his passing rate. So your second goal was to create clear objectives in planning, have an accountability partner, and the third was all infraction with students will remain professional and positive at all times. And I remember the meeting was pretty lengthy to go over the first meeting to have to generate ideas for the plan. But I remember that this meeting to actually go over the plan and sign the plan was almost as difficult as the first meeting. Can you speak to that?
I guess we were still in the same place, so still not quite understanding. I don't remember the timeline on there, but it doesn't seem like there was at that point there hadn't been a large turnaround, and so I guess it's hard, difficult to I guess change perspective on convictions you have about education and about how you hold students accountable, and so it's a difficult thing to ask someone at times, but I think. One of the things that hit home the most after we had that second coaching that I started to reflect on was when you really put it in concrete that you're not assessing me strictly on, let's say, for example, we talked to a few things, but for example, star scores. It's not to say that you never said you don't value them, but you said first and foremost, what you're assessing me on is the things that am I doing the things you've asked me to do? And you kept saying, so why are you thinking about the star scores, if things like that? Because I don't know if you remember, I kept bringing up that argument. Well, if they're making 100 in the class, or let's say a high grade, and then a unit exam comes out and they make up let's say a 40 or a 50, how do we have that discrepancy in that grading and their ability? But you kept saying, I should assess them the way you would assess me, and so that I think. At that point, that's when it really started to sink in. So I guess as I'm saying it out loud, maybe there wasn't a large difference because I hadn't heard the right thing from you yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Which leads me to my next question. So at what point did you start saying, this is a good plan, I believe in it, because you excelled at this plan? Like in 3 weeks, not only did your failure rate decrease, your unit assessment increased, your student interactions, they were just positive. There were very few calls, if any, that it's still to this day that comes across on the radio. And so there was, at some point you did something different and you worked the plan. What was that? Like, what inspired that, and what it specifically did?
I guess at first, initially, after our second coaching session, I really felt like, okay, well, so this is what my principal's asking me to do. I'm not sure that I didn't even think whether or not I was on board or how much I agreed with. I guess my first reaction was, okay, so I appreciate how adamant you were and how clearly you were able to set forth what you expected to see. So for me, it became not a matter of whether or not I believe in it. It's just, okay, here's what I need to do. It's pretty clear. And so once I started planning around that and seeing, okay, so how can we raise the grades in the classroom and how can we get the performance to go up? I guess then my perspective started to change. We started grading a lot more based off participation. And once I really started seeing some things in my classroom change that I had wanted to change for a while, then I kind of started to buy in more a little bit and start to look at new and different ways. In particular, the participation in the warm-up. Students come in and the procedures when they come in, that went up dramatically because what I asked students to do is to come in and start their warm-up when they come in. And the participation went up with that because I started to say, okay, well, here's an opportunity for me to kill two birds with one stone. We want the grades to go up, we want participation to go up, so let's merge those. So I walk around with an iPad, and I created a little program there that averages their grades on a spreadsheet. And so every day I'm putting a grade in and I'm just walking around the classroom, and that's given me an opportunity to help refine that with the students too, because at first it was just a way to get them to participate. And now it's a way to get them to even raise their participation. And so, for example, they could say, okay, you're doing it, maybe when I have a rubric for it and what their grade's gonna be based on, but it's not based on, did you get the answer right? It's how much effort they're putting in, and then the next step is what type of effort. Is it just you trying really hard, or are you using some strategies, and are you able to defend your answer, that kind of thing?
So, and I remember that clearly because you shared that with me a week or so after the plan. I just personally want to thank you for working the plan, and it was an idea I had just to help teachers improve. It worked so well with you that I did roll this out campus-wide, and so I have seen an improvement, and I just thank you for being a willing participant in the middle or somewhere. It really works because it's just basically a coaching plan, as stated earlier, I had no desire to be like hardcore, punish people, yell and scream, intimidation. I wanted to coach teachers to be better, and I believe that this plan was effective. And I clearly remember stating to you that it's a non-punitive plan, it's a coaching plan, but if need be, this would just be lifted up and placed into a growth plan, but
Sure.
that's not something that I want to do at all. And so I just thank you for trusting and believing that that was the process. And just actually, even though you're not on any type of plan, that our communication has just improved. We just continue to talk about these things, and I think that it has helped you grow as a teacher, and I can say for a fact it's helped me grow as an administrator and an instructional leader. So I really thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you.